Hello and welcome to our online presentation for Firgrove Heath. This is a presentation recorded specifically for our website on Wednesday the 28th of January 2026. In the presentation today, I'll be giving an introduction to Berkeley and the format of our application, our understanding of the site, our proposals and the benefits of our scheme. So thank you for taking the time to listen and engage with us. Berkeley have vast experience in delivering high quality homes and places for everyone to enjoy. Here are 3 example schemes that we've delivered at Abbey Barn Park in High Wycombe, Woodhurst Park in Warfield and Winterbrook Meadows in Wallingford. Over the course of the last 12 months, Berkeley's have engaged with the public and we've listened to what you've said. Our applications have been updated to suit those comments. So firstly, regarding the detail, we'll be submitting a hybrid application with detailed proposals of the country park and the first 131 new high quality homes. Secondly, with regard to those number of homes, we've reduced the overall maximum number of homes from 400 to 300. So 25% reduction. Thirdly, regarding green space, we're opening up the majority of our site, the equivalent of 20 football pitches of green space, open for all the public to enjoy. And through the opening up of our country park, this will help reduce footfall within the Castle Bottom Nature Reserve, helping to protect and enhance local wildlife. And finally, with regard to flooding, we've revised our drainage strategy to ensure that there's no greater risk to the surrounding area than the current situation. We want to give certainty of our scheme in terms of the quality and the details of what we're proposing. So what we have here is the extent of the detailed elements of our application site, highlighted in pink, and the extent that will be in outline only, highlighted in blue. Alongside the application, we'll also submit parameter plans. The first one being our land use and green infrastructure parameter, which is the central plan on the screen. This demonstrates the maximum extent of residential accommodation in yellow, the extent of public open space highlighted in green, and surface water drainage features highlighted in blue. The final parameter plan is with regard to heights. We've designed the scheme to sensitively sit within its surroundings. Our parameters will show heights of no more than 2.5 stories around the fringes of the development, raising up to 3 stories where we're within the centre of the residential parcels. Onto the site. The site's located just to the west of Yateley, within the parish of Eversley. To the south we have Castle Bottom Nature Reserve and Blackbush Airport. And to the north here you can see Firgrove Road and Eversley Road as they meet their way up to Eversley Cross. The site's in a fantastic location and a sustainable location within easy walking distance of a broad range of facilities, from shops, schools, retail, nursery and many other facilities that's demonstrated in this graphic. When we're looking at our proposals and how we develop the site, we take into account a number of key considerations. The first of those is levels. What we see on this diagram is that from the north along Firgrove Road through to the central part of the site, levels gently rise from around about 68.5 metres AOD to 75 metres AOD. And that's demonstrated by the wide gaps between the contour lines on this plan. In the southern half of the site, these levels continue to rise to around 91 metres AOD. And that change in levels is far more substantial than what we see on the northern part of the scheme. Second key consideration is flooding. Along the eastern edge of the development, the land immediately adjacent to existing ditch sits within flood zones 2 and 3, and that's demonstrated by the blue hatch on this plan. Our third consideration is landscape. We have a number of existing trees and hedgerows that run around the boundary of the site, but also some within the centre. But the key consideration here that we're looking at is the Thames Basin Heath SPA 400-metre buffer, and that's demonstrated by the red dashed line that bisects the site east-west. Finally, heritage. Our proposals are respectful of and will take cues from the neighbouring heritage assets. We have 3 listed buildings within close proximity of the site, starting with number 1 on the western boundary is Firgrove Farmhouse. As we move further north, we have Firgrove Manor, and then to the north of the site, on the opposite side of the road, we have Firgrove Cottage, labelled number 3. Our proposals, design evolution. For those of you who came to our exhibition at Eversley Parish Council on the 6th of January, this is the plan that you would have been presented with. As we noted in that presentation, we had been having meetings with Herts District Council, and from that we noted that there would be things that would need to change as part of our scheme. For the purpose of clarity, the presentation that I'll go through today is an evolution of the scheme that you would have seen at that meeting on the 6th of January. Working with and listening to residents and key stakeholders, we've evolved our proposals to provide fewer homes in addition to the following key changes. We're delivering greater respect to heritage assets. A larger country park, in particular from the one that you have seen in our presentations in the summer of 2025. We're offering improved landscape connections through the development, a revised play and open space strategy, and detailed design inspired by local vernacular. We're proposing a scheme which responds and reflects to the inherent character and assets. Firstly, respecting and protecting heritage. Secondly, creating a distinct landscaped arrival off Firgrove Road to the north-eastern corner. Third, enhancing landscape connections, helping to reinforce biodiversity and ecology within the site. 4, delivering homes which will maximise that connectivity to landscape. And 5, creating a safe, sustainable, legible network which will encourage active travel for residents. With regard to phase 1, we have a number of design principles. First, we want to create a sense of arrival from Firgrove Road. This will be a clear gateway created through a crescent of homes which will frame a generous green arrival space, establishing that immediate sense of place. Looking at this in more detail, some of you will note that in the presentations given back in summer 2025, there was a proposal for a roundabout onto Firgrove Road. Through detailed design, we've re-looked at this with our highways consultants, and we've now designed this scheme with a T-junction onto Firgrove Road. Alongside this, we'll have new traffic calming measures to the west and to the east of this new junction, which will help to reinforce the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit that exists on this particular stretch of road. In addition to these traffic calming measures, we're also going to provide a 3-metre wide shared foot cycleway, which will connect our development into Yateley to create a sustainable place for people to live and enjoy. Coming back to the wider master plan, the second principle is to establish the village street. This is a clearly legible primary street which will loop through the development and will be lined by generous planting to help create a coherent spine to the scheme. We also want to create streets which have character and interest. So we'll be introducing greens and pinwheels to create the intimacy within the street, echoing the character of surrounding villages. The next step is to develop the woodland edge. We want to create a generous and sensitive landscape buffer which will provide valuable green infrastructure for new and existing residents, in addition to managing the existing areas that are contained within the flood zone. 5 will develop the hedge frontage. So this will follow the existing alignment of hedgerows that run through the centre of the site, with new homes sensitively fronting onto green spaces which will integrate nature and amenity into the development. And finally, we'll create that interface with the country park to the south. Larger homes will provide a more organic character and a lower density as we sensitively transition to the country park to the south. That takes us into our revised master plan. So, working with and listening to residents and key stakeholders, all of the things that I've talked about in the previous slides have been driven into our revised scheme. What we have on the page here are 2 plans. The left is the overall site plan, which shows the full extent of our ownership. You'll note on this that the top half of the scheme is where our residential development will sit. That aligns with where the lower site topography is. And then as we come towards the southern half, this is where our country park will sit. You'll also note on these 2 plans that the area on the left-hand side is greyed out. This is our phase 2 and the element that will be in outline. Everything else that's not greyed out on these 2 plans is submitted to Hart District Council in full detail. So you'll be able to look at the elevations, the floor plans and the site plans along with all the accompanying reports in detail. I also want to take the moment to just explain our movement network. We've already spoken about a new T-junction onto Firgrove Road, but it's also worth pointing out that we have an emergency access onto Kitscroft, which is labelled as number 2. This is for emergency purposes only. It won't be used for day-to-day access to the development. Within the site, we then have the Village Avenue, also known as the Loop Road. This is the dark blue ribbon that wraps its way through the 2 phases, off of which we then have these fingers of home zones, which are much less trafficked residential areas. And then linking all of these spaces together right the way from the connection into Firgrove Road to the north, through the development and the green spaces, right the way into our country park, we have a series of leisure footpaths highlighted in yellow. Landscape character. Just coming back to reinforce where we are, here's 2 site plans which show the site as it would be developed in full. The first area that we'll talk about is in the northern part of the site where we're around the residential development. And then later in the presentation, I'll look at the southern part and our country park. So first of all, looking at the character areas from a landscape perspective, we've developed a scheme which is set around these series of interconnected landscape spaces. From Alder Green, which is our entrance arrival space in the north-eastern corner of the site. Extending south, we have the Woodland Edge, which sits along the eastern boundary of our site and where we abut the existing Yateley development. Within the centre of the scheme, we have Firgrove Green, a new green public space within the heart of the development. And that sits on one of our 2 ecological north-south corridors, one which runs north-south through the centre of the site, and a second which runs along Kitscroft. The last 2 spaces are Oak Green and Pinwheels, and these are smaller, more intimate spaces that help to articulate the streets within the site. Overlaid within our landscape proposals, we have a play strategy, which provides opportunities for play throughout the development. We want to deliver play which is rooted in its place and connected to landscape, encourages imagination and learning through play, and is inclusive and accessible. We're doing that through 4 key types of play. Firstly, informal play. We have local play areas, a local park, and an equipped park. The informal play is a series of nature-inspired play trails which provide an engaging walking experience for younger children. These sit within our 3 north-south landscape corridors along the 2 edges and through the middle of the site and help to connect the play spaces. Play will be provided through balance beams, logs, natural experiences for children to engage with as they walk through the site. Our second type of play are our local play areas, also referred to as labs. We're providing 2 of these on our development that sit on the eastern and western edges. These are play areas which are aimed at 4 to 6-year-old children and have been designed for short stay, imaginative play. Our next play space is the local park. This sits in the heart of our development within our new green space. This is aimed at children of 4 to 8-year-old. With increased size and the introduction of play equipment, this will provide space for interactive play for children. And then finally, our equipped park. This sits at the interface between the country park to the south and our residential development to the north. It's designed for 8 to 14-year-old children, and this larger play area provides bigger play equipment to encourage interactive play for those older children. In terms of sustainable drainage, surface water on the site will be managed through the on-site combination of landscape features. As you recall from earlier in the slides, the site topography falls from a higher point to the south down to a lower point as we reach Firgrove Road. We'll be capturing and managing the water on site through a series of these landscape features, starting with open swales, which are the paler green areas. These are much more naturalistic planted ditches, which will help capture water as it runs across the surface, using landscape to absorb water and to slow its flow and movement through the site. As we move further through the site, we have a series of rain gardens and green verges, which are much more, whilst they're still landscape spaces, they're not quite as naturalistic as the swales, but these do perform a similar function in channeling, holding back the water using landscape as a measure. We also have highlighted by the pale blue permeable pavement. So this is where we capture rainwater at source as it hits the ground, allowing it to naturally infiltrate into the site. And then finally, attenuation basins. So these are primarily located at the northern part of the site, and these really are the last method for capturing water as it flows through the scheme. These will only probably be wet during exceedance events, as they're referred to, i.e. when we have greater than normal rainfall. And all of these features together combine to ensure that water runoff from our site is no worse than what the current situation as the field is. In the southern half of our scheme is our new country park. This is an area of 10 hectares open to the local community, the equivalent of 20 football pitches. Our country park opens up the landscape with a series of linked trails. As those of you who have walked through the site currently know, the majority of this is fenced off and is a public right-of-way which cuts diagonally from the top left corner down to the bottom right. We'll open up all of this space to the public. The site will be 73% larger than Natural England requirements and will consist of a total of 2.3 kilometres of walking loops, which will be made up by a number of smaller trails highlighted by the 3 coloured routes shown on the plan. And we have vast experience as a developer in delivering these country parks. Here we've got 3 that have been delivered, firstly at Hares Hill in Fleet, secondly at Sunningdale Park in Ascot, and finally at Woodhurst Park in Warfield. Architectural character. Referring back to our master plan, we've delivered a number of character areas which are complementary and inspired by the local area. We've labelled them the formal arrival, which is the entrance space linked to Alder Green in the top right-hand corner. We have hedge frontage, which sits broadly through the middle of the site. That consists of the landscape areas Firgrove Green and one of the ecological corridors. Surrounding the loop road that wraps its way between phase 1 and phase 2, we have our village street, and that also includes Oak Green and the Pinwheels. before finally we're on Woodland Edge. This is the area that sits around the edge of the development where we're interacting with existing landscape buffers. Our formal arrival space will be inspired by the Georgian character of Firgrove Manor, which will be a semi-formal arrival space marking the entrance into the neighbourhood. It'll be formed by a series of detached homes around a loose crescent, in front of which there'll be this generous green space. And on this slide and following slides, I've included some examples of schemes which we have developed, which closely resemble the kind of character from a landscape in particular perspective that we're looking to achieve. And here we have an artist illustration as to how that space will look. So at this point, we're stood just as we've entered the site from Firgrove Road to the north, and here we're looking south into the development at that gently arcing crescent of homes. The second character area is hedge frontage. This is a well-enclosed frontage which has varied house types and rich textural materials. Vehicle access in this area will be balanced to create active, visually engaging streetscapes that will balance that higher density with softened landscape-led edge. The third character area is Village Street. These will blend elements of that semi-formal arrival space with the more rural village influences of compact, sweeping streets punctuated by pockets of green space and key marker buildings. This is also where we have our only apartment block within phase 1. Here you'll see that whilst it is identified as going up to as tall as 3 stories, the mass is broken up into smaller individual components, reflecting the manor house typology that we can take cues from Firgrove Manor from. And here is an artist's illustration of how that space could look with oak green in its foreground. Final character area, Woodland Edge, combines this informal landscape-facing layout with a rustic architectural palette, varied brickwork and traditional detailing, and it will consist of larger detached or semi-detached homes in a much more irregular edge format as we address that landscape buffered edge. And here we have an illustration of that space. So at this point we're stood within that landscape buffer as we're adjoining Yateley, which would sit just behind us in this view. We've got the footpath that meanders its way through a combination of existing retained trees and new tree planting, and the opportunities for the informal play along the way that we talked about on a previous slide. Whilst we're delivering an outline of up to 300 homes, we'll be delivering 131 homes in detail within phase 1. This will consist of a range of 1-bedroomed apartments right the way through to 5-bedroomed houses. And as you can see from the key and the plan that's on the right hand side, you can locate where we're intending these to be. Also referring back to building heights, we've carefully considered where we've put height in this scheme in order to respond to the surrounding area. You'll recall from one of my earlier slides that we looked at the parameter plans which showed 2 yellow and orange areas, the first yellow being up to 2.5 stories and the second orange being up to 3 stories. And as we spoke about on the previous slide, the scale of development will gently rise up to the tallest elements being within the centre of the site, furthest away from existing residential dwellings. We're also demonstrating how that will come through in detail within phase 1. So with the blue keys, we have a series of 2-storey in pale blue, right the way up to 3-storey in the darker blue. And you'll be able to see from this overlay that the majority of the site, as we're coming forward, is designed as 2-storey development. So whilst the parameters allow for a maximum height, what we're doing is demonstrating here what that height would look like in detail in the application that's been submitted. We're also looking to deliver this sustainable community. We want to reduce our impact on climate change, and we'll do that through 5 key areas. Firstly, nature. We'll protect and enhance biodiversity with a net gain of at least 10%, which will be delivered through on and off-site measures. Sustainable living will be encouraged through building a sustainable community. We'll set up and encourage the long-term stewardship of community activities in order to bring people together and foster that cohesive community spirit. Thirdly, we'll take a fabric-first approach to our new homes. Our new homes will be energy efficient through increased insulation and air tightness, alongside the provision of renewable technologies. We're proposing that this scheme will be delivered using air source heat pump alongside solar photovoltaic panels on the roof. From a waste perspective, in addition to the recycling facilities within new homes, we'll aim to minimise waste from construction, with 98% of any non-hazardous waste reused or recycled by 2030. And finally, water. We will use water efficient measures such as dual flush WCs, flow regulators, and water efficient appliances, in addition to the site-wide sustainable drainage features we spoke about earlier. So finally, the benefits of our proposals. We have a commitment to deliver real benefits on this site. It's a unique opportunity to unlock the site and ensure the delivery of many benefits. Firstly, we want to deliver new, high-quality homes which have been uniquely designed to reference the architectural vernacular of the area, will contribute towards the housing need and shortfall within the district, in addition to delivering 40% of these new homes as affordable. And we'll be delivering up to 300 of these high-quality bespoke homes, ranging from one-bedroom apartments through to 5-bedroom detached houses. We'll deliver a place where nature can thrive. Over 60% of our site will be open space, including a beautiful new country park. We'll deliver at least a 10% biodiversity net gain alongside enhanced habitat creation through the site. And we'll take a long-term view, ensuring that the stewardship plays an active role in the wider community. We'll deliver contributions to the local economy through Section 106, enabling us to enhance local infrastructure and support key community groups. 5% of our workforce will be in earn and learn roles, including education, continued training and apprenticeships, and will create new jobs throughout the construction phase within the local area. We'll deliver a low carbon development, which will include features such as air source heat pumps, which will help reduce our carbon emissions. We'll reduce water consumption by 20 litres per person per day compared to guidance under regulations, and will include solar panels to encourage the use of renewable energy sources. Finally, we'll deliver improved sustainable travel. That will be through the provision of foot and cycleways alongside enhanced pedestrian routes along Firgrove Road. We'll provide car charging facilities and secure cycle storage for each home, and we'll deliver new pathways throughout the designated country park for everyone to use and enjoy. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. If you have any questions about anything that you've heard today, or any questions in particular about the development, please email us at firgroveheath@berkeleyhomes.co.uk. You'll also be able to find more information on our development at the website firgroveheath.co.uk. Thank you again for your time.